E.R.A.S.E is an organization. It's a movement. We're talking about unity. We're talking about unity. So we're aimed to taking down the system of race by educating, enlightening, informing, and positively debating with those who have counterviews.
Welcome to E.R.A.S.E. I'm Richard, and I'm here to declare that in E.R.A.S.E, we're not just surviving, we are thriving. We're making a difference. We're bringing everybody together. I'm telling you what, the world will be a mess, but that's just the beginning of the message as we figure this out. And I am here with Mr. Carlen, and he is about to tell you some things that you may not know. And if you already know it, he's going to encourage you to keep going in the right direction.
Hey, I'm glad to be here. Welcome to Talk About Unity here on Edge Radio, where we bring people from the edges and we bring them to the center so that we can, in fact, talk about unity. And that's what we do on the show. I'm glad to be here with my co-host, Richard Jennings. He is the pastor at the River of Praise there in Tomball, our local here. And I'm just a regular guy. So I'm just a regular guy, and so I'm glad to be here. But let me tell you, I want to spend some time today. I'm going to cue that picture over there. Vince, our producer, cue that picture, because I want to just spend a few minutes. You know, we talk about E.R.A.S.E and talk about unity, but this is a living epitome of what I'm talking about when I talk about E.R.A.S.E. My wife was diagnosed 3 months ago with breast cancer. Since then, it's just simply been amazing. So amazing to the extent that my wife said to me, because of the love that she received, because of the way she was feeling, people call her now and go, "How are you doing?" She says, "This is crazy, but this is great." Because of the outpouring and love and affection that we've gotten from people. We didn't get it from black people. We didn't get it from white people. We didn't get it from church people. We didn't get it from non-church people. We got it from people who loved, people who cared. And that's what we're talking about. When we can take humanity to the point where we understand that people can love and people can care, and then we do that ourselves, that is what we mean with E.R.A.S.E. And so I don't have the words to articulate what I really mean, because it has just shown itself so fully in the way that not only my wife has responded, but all of the people involved. I mean, it's an atmosphere of love. And this is what we're talking about doing in America.
Yes.
We're talking about people beginning to understand that I don't need to label you. I don't need to call you a conservative or liberal or Democrat or Republican. I need to see if the love that I have in my heart is more powerful than anything else that you have to bring against me. So even if that's why when it talks about in the scripture, it says love your enemies, because God knew what we don't know is that love is more powerful than hate. And that if I can take my love, show that to you, give that to you, then whatever you've got, whether it be hate or something even less, then it'll come back in a way that reciprocates that love that I've given out. So the power is in love. And I just got it in droves. And let me finish by saying this. And I'm talking about, and I used to say just, locally or nationally, but we got people, friends from Nigeria, and it's just been amazing, the outpouring. And my wife who's getting ready to start her chemo treatments tomorrow.
Come on.
Everybody calls her and she said, and when they call, she says, "How are you doing?" She says, "This is great." And she has to put it in perspective, because everybody thinks she goes, "How can you say this is great? You have breast cancer. You're in breast cancer." She says, "It's just great. It's just great." And then she turned at me and she said, "Did you bring this on me by doing this E.R.A.S.E thing? God wanted to prove to you that it's so real." And so that's the way it's been. And we just looked at the kind of the map though, and we got this friend of ours who called. He's in Washington State and going, "We're praying for you."
Yeah, good.
We got this family down in California, the Jones family, and they're going, "Hey, man, they're tight," and they put on their T-shirts and everything today, and they said, "We're there for you." Okay. Then we go up to Virginia, and we've got this family, the Links, who've been with us forever, he and his wife, and they sent the pictures in with their shirts on. Then you go down to Florida, and we got the Carlens, who've been like friends for so long, and I was like, and then all the points in between, so we got the map covered.
That's good.
In love. And so while America might be fighting with social justice and all this other stuff, let me tell you what we got. We got love.
That's it.
We got love. And so that's Carlen's commentary for today. I don't know what else I'm going to say, but I can tell you from today, from the bottom of my heart, I love people. I love you. I love all of you who've shown so much love. And even if you haven't, I love you anyway. I mean, that's the kind of love that I'm getting from people. And that's what I think we need. So
Yes.
Carlen's commentary.
Amen.
That's it. All right.
That's awesome.
All right. Well, Richard, tell him. All right. That's my commentary. Tell him what else we're going to talk about on the show
Man,
today.
we have so much going on, from talking about impeachment to Black History Month, yes, COVID relief bills, and man, I don't know, we might even talk about the Super Bowl a little bit, this whole conspiracy control. We're going to talk
crazy.
about how there's there's a conversation going on that we need to have a truth czar brought into Washington, D.C. So
that crazy?
We're going to talk about everything.
Hey, well, all right. So let's get one of these topics underway, because we'll be going to break here in a second. All right, so let's talk about where we stand kind of on the impeachment thing. I read this article, and CNN posted this thing, and so this is the way CNN characterized it. CNN asked this question. They said the question is if a president can lose a re-election and get away with a violent coup attempt in a desperate bid to stay in power, is that okay? That was their question, and so they make a lot of assumptions in there, but that's their whole deal with impeachment, of course. And I'm the talk about unity guy, and I'm the guy who says, let's do whatever we can do together. That should be our primary aim. And so we're going to talk about this later in the show, because someone wrote in to or sent to President Biden and said they wanted a conspiracy or truth czar. Reality
That's
czar,
it.
something
That's
like that.
The word, truth
I'm
czar.
like, what you need is a unity czar. Call me. Somebody tell
I got
President
a real good
Biden,
idea.
call me. We need a unity czar. We need a unity czar. And that would have meant that concerning impeachment, that Nancy Pelosi would have gotten with Mitch McConnell or Chuck Schumer, whoever's over there. They're 50-50. So whoever's in charge, we don't know who's in charge over there, but whoever's in charge would have gotten with them and said, what can we do together? That should be the question we should ask when we do everything. What can we do together? And if we can't do it together, we need to work until we can.
Yep.
That should be it. That's what the unity czar says. So I'm the self-appointed. Okay, I'm gonna be the unity czar.
You know what?
They're not paying me, but I'm gonna be the unity czar.
I think we have a unanimous vote in the studio.
Yeah, vote.
Yeah,
all right, let's send
yes.
that to Washington. Yeah.
Hey, I have a culture that I push in the church, which is truth with love. If you can't say it in truth with love, hang on to it.
Hang on to it. Hang on. That's good. That's good.
We need to live like that.
That's good.
But Washington would do a whole lot better, and I try to get a well-rounded feed from different news sources so we can stay current and just see other perspectives. And when you said CNN, I'm just telling you, sometimes I get over there, I click, and I look at that, and it's about 30 seconds. And CNN to me sometimes means cannot now. Cannot now. Get off of that just right. And then every once in a while I'll go back and go, okay, I can now. So like that. But I'm telling you what, every news channel needs to learn that truth with love. Do everything together in unity, and you'd be surprised how fast you can make progress when you get to that place, when we get into unity. So
so much of the news now is news about, CNN's talking about Fox, and Fox is talking about CNN. I'm like, you're talking about each other. You're making news off of each other, know? And what are we doing? We're sitting here as citizens. We're going, they said this over here on the right side. They said this on the left. And we're just going back and forth. But the news is like here in the middle. Stuff is happening out here. We need to be addressing that. So I don't know. We got to fix that. But I think no. So what's your feeling? Just let's go political for a second.
Okay,
what's your feeling on the impeachment? What's going to happen?
So
we're not political, but you can go political here.
Well, that's okay. The impeachment is such a. Now, there's people that are very passionate about that. He charged up people to go down there and cause a stink. Well, the whole thing is people have been charging up people for a long time to cause a stink. I mean, there's video of previous Republicans and Democrats, the two that they are actually showing the video of every single day, all the time, is Maxine, when she was telling the crowd, hey, go mess up their dinner, and and Cory Booker. And so the push that's happening actually in those chambers, they've actually made speeches like, if you're going to go after former President Trump, do we call him former? Yeah. Or is he still president?
No, he's former.
Okay, so former president. So go after former President Trump's what he said about go down there and scream real loud, make some racket. Then then if you're going to go after him, then you should go after the other people that have all done similar things. Nancy and not Nancy, well, maybe
Maxine
and Corey and others on the Republican side as well. And so it's just a slippery slope. So basically what's going to happen is the Supreme Court Chief Justice is not even going. He's not even going to be a part of it.
He's not presiding, which he should be.
He's not presiding, and he should be. But they know it is dead as soon as it hits the Senate because there's only 5 people that said they might go across the aisle and vote, and so they need 16. There's no way they're going to get 16. So this is just a big dog and pony show. It definitely needs to. We do need to make a big deal out of incitement. Just in general, how politicians have a huge responsibility about not inciting people. People can get in trouble no matter where you are. As a pastor, I can't incite people. Hey, let's go tear the community up. No, you're going to get in trouble for that. Nobody needs to be inciting anybody. So there does need to be a big deal out of it. But impeaching somebody who's out of office, a lot of people pushing that that's not even constitutional. You can't do that. But you can really throw some stank at him on his way out. So I mean, it's not going to go anywhere. There's no way they're going to get 16 votes.
And that thing, and we would have saved all of this time, I think, if they had that initial question, what can we do together? Because once they realize they're not together, but I don't think there's any intent on their behalf to do anything together. And that's the sad state of things. I love the stuff that President Biden was talking about when he was campaigning. I said, okay, sounds like he's pushing, making unity, but I was like, okay, but this is a campaign. See, right? I said, we'll see. And so it still sounds like it's business as usual in Washington. And so people like me and you and all of America, we got to come together and solve the problems because the people we're electing are not. So
the answer to all of that is because in the Senate, it's 50-50. In the House, only 6 votes difference in power. And then Supreme Court is conservative leaning, and President Biden we're still trying to figure that out. If people would realize they should first think that the citizens would first think not Republican, not Democrat, but I voted for you to represent me and my issues in my community, and just really hold everybody, Republican or Democrat, hold their leader accountable. Then all of a sudden, all of the cover that they get under a political umbrella would fall away. And that guy or lady that's in office would say, hey, I better get my tail end in gear and make some progress of doing the people's business, or I could get voted out. I love this season that we're in. I'm not, I'm afraid what's going to. No. I'm excited because it's actually going back to we the people, government of the people, by the people, for the people. And I'm done preaching right now.
And that's great because what we could do, it sounds like you're advocating for, if we can do away with the idea that these people are different because they're in a different party, they're in a different demographic or whatever, and just start evaluating people as human, as I was talking about in my commentary about people.
Yes.
Just love people, evaluate people. So we got to do that. Well, that's what we're trying to do on Talk About Unity. We're talking about how we can do that. We're going to talk about that some more when we come back after this break, because we're going to talk about Black History Month. And what is Black History Month? And is there a requirement for Black History Month? Why isn't Black History American history? We'll talk about that, and we want your views. So we'll be right back after this.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, ignition, liftoff.
Don't push me because I'm close to the edge.
I'm trying not to lose my head.
Hey, this is the Talk About Unity show where I bring the talk.
And I bring the unity.
And together we talk about unity. Unity is what matters.
Come on.
And right now in our country, that's what we've got to do. So we do that here at Talk About Unity on the Edge Radio Network. Be with us every week.
It's going to be awesome. It always is. And I tell you what, the more we seek first to understand, then be understood, we make progress.
And we like to do that. And that's why everybody's on the brink. We love what we do at Edge Radio because everybody's on the edge. We bring them back from the edge and we bring the unity. So we're just glad to Edge Radio Network every Tuesday morning, 10 a.m. Talk About Unity, because here at Edge Radio Network, truth still matters. I want to welcome you back to Talk About Unity here on February 9th of 2021. It's well, I tell you what, this year is really rocketing by. I mean, it's like we're out of January, almost halfway into February.
Here we go.
And man, so maybe it'll be in and out like 2020 with a lot of action happening at the same time. So maybe we'll have that in 2021. Hey, but we're glad to have you back here, and we're just really going through the issues of the day. I began a commentary talking about the love that I'm receiving and trying to give that love back out. And it's amazing when you receive that kind of love, you kind of spend, I think we would be changed if we really just started loving, because once you experience that love coming back, it's like you're a totally different person. I mean, you feel like, even people that you hated, you can't hate them anymore because of the amount of love that you have. And so that's kind of where we're talking about going. And that's what we're talking about on Talk About Unity today. But, we covered some things, but we want to get to this point. We're in what people call Black History Month. And so I've been having some conversations lately about Black History Month. And Morgan Freeman had this video clip from 60 Minutes, and that was probably in the early 90s. And Morgan Freeman sits there with Mike Wallace.
Oh, Mike
Wallace.
Okay.
Mike Wallace. Chris Wallace's dad. You know?
Yeah.
So Mike Wallace, and he says, I don't want a Black History Month.
Okay.
And Mike Wallace says, well, why not? And Morgan Freeman says, do you have White History Month? and Mike Wallace says, well, I'm Jewish. He said, okay, well, do you have Jewish History Month?
Right.
He said, well, no. He said, I don't want one. And then Morgan Freeman said, well, I don't either. I don't want, he said, and he made this point, and this is the point I want to discuss. He said, Black history is American history. And I think he said, and so we need to make sure that we're telling all of the American history story, and people will be covered. And you won't need Black History Month. He said, what are you going to do? You going to give me 28 days to discuss my heritage, where I came from, and you're going to feel like that's okay? And so I think that's important, because we have really, I think, initially, Carter G. Woodson he had Black History Week. And then, so that lasted for quite a while, because that was in the early 1920 or so. And they had Black History Week. But then in 1970, they started Black History Month. The first time it was held was at Kent State. So they started Black History Month. And I think the problem with that was that we felt like, well, we're doing something good. And that's, I'll call it the law of unintended consequences. We actually thought we were doing something good for them. We give them these 28 days, and then we don't have to address it in our public school history. We don't have to make sure that our books are accurate. And so they kind of ignored it and say, well, we'll get back to them in February, But no, that should be, as Morgan was saying,
all the time.
Yeah, in our history books, it should have those stories, and you don't even have to identify. If you just told the story, then let students do the critical thinking that they should be doing in school. Let them analyze that and go, wow, this is what happened to that group of people, and they have the full story. And like I was telling the group, as I was a high school teacher for 12 years, and I talked to them about, well, there was a time when the history that we were receiving, we could make excuses for the fact that they gave us the wrong history. But in today's world, we don't have that excuse anymore, because you have all the tools necessary to acquire as much information as you'd like to about the history. So I'm feeling that Black History Month was well served during its time, but we need to move beyond that and say, let's tell the American story, and let's portray everything that has happened in the American story, and let's become literate about the American history, everybody. So what do you think?
Just coming together. I mean, the whole thing is we're all a compilation of a lot of events and a lot of interactions. And to think that a particular segment of our population's history is in this protected little environment. No, there was interactions with a lot of different people and events in order for that. There was something that happened before, something also happening at the same time, and then there was a result of what happens after. And the beauty of the story isn't just, and this is what I loved about my college professor. She said, hey, we're not just talking about a name and a date and a place. We're also talking about what happened before, what was also going on, what really caused that to come out, and what was the end result of that, and what else was impacted by that. To tell the whole story of history. Black history is not just Black history. What was happening in Black history happened to everyone.
Right.
The
that was
advancements
part of the entire country,
part
of the world.
Right?
Yeah.
And so then there's other people, the other side of my family. What about Native American history? Where is that? Or where's the Asian history? Where's the Hispanic history?
See, and all that's caught up in real history. And
Yeah.
because what you're talking about is the fact that the history of mankind has the interaction of various people and from various places, geographic and various
Yes.
people groups around the country. And what we've experienced around the world has been intermixing of all of these different demographics. And
Yeah.
so that's what we've experienced. And the evolution, or I would say the transportation of African slaves to America is one event in
Yeah.
a lot of other things, because you had the immigrant population, you got the Native American population,
Right.
you've got the Chinese that played a big role in the beginning of America. And so you had all these people groups. And I think if we don't have an educational system that allows students, and not even just students, all of the citizens, to become aware of how that has happened, then when they pass someone on the street, they can see them as the other and not understand, no, we're part of each other.
That's right.
And that's the reality, that we have so many things. And and I was talking to my wife about that, because she's an Army brat. She was born in France and spent a lot of time in Europe and around the world when she was traveling with her dad, who was in the Army. And so I said, wow, when we were thinking about this, I was going, how coincidental that you'd have that worldwide background. I got it from spending 20 years in the Marine Corps and then having to go worldwide, a little guy born and raised in Prairie View, Texas, a little bitty country town, whatever. Then going around the world and getting your eyes opened up that, wow, everybody's not like me. Everybody's not like the people in Prairie View. It just changes your world. And I think if we could do more of that, when I traveled around the country in 2019, I said, if everybody just did that one time, travel to go to every state, and you realize the differences, you would have a changed view of people.
Yeah.
So
it's just so important to get to the place to where we live outside of our place of isolation with color and culture, and
get out of our quarantine.
Get out of our self-induced.
Is that what you mean? Get out of the quarantine?
Unnecessary.
We have quarantined ourselves.
Quarantine. Yeah, we talked before about the dog Zeke. My dog Zeke, a big 165-pound Rottweiler, big Rottweiler, and we got him from a rescue, and we just fell in love with him. He fell in love with us, but we noticed rather quickly that Zeke had some issues. Big dog, and so first thing we did is we tried to take him and interact him with other dogs. Well, other dog was a threat, so let me kill this dog, or somebody dresses a certain way, or a ball cap, or just their body language wanted to attack certain people. And the trainer said, you have to socialize this dog. You got to get him out of his isolation in this protected
get him out of his
environment,
quarantine,
and then interact him with dogs and other people that are different than what he's accustomed to, where he realizes that they're not a threat, and he'll make progress. But watch him in the beginning, but then as he grows, that I'm telling you what, as time went on, at first he wanted to kill everything and everybody, but as time went on, Zeke was I would trust him with anybody. It was just an amazing transformation. And Zeke is so much like people. People have this tendency, because they live in this isolation. It's like, well, this person from this culture always does this. People even do that with men and women.
Right.
Like, well, male bosses are always this way, or females are like that, or oh, come on, wait a minute. If you get out of your bubble, you're going to see that all of those things are nothing but a big fallacy.
Right.
And we need
Stop
to realize
labeling.
people
Labeling.
are people. Yeah.
And that's the other thing. It keeps people from challenging themselves to interact with those others. Because if I see them as others, and I have this one particular friend that I talk to on Facebook, and we disagree all the time, and he's talking about those people, and every time he talks about those people, I go, do you know any of those people? Once you know how about knowing some of those people? And he says, well, I don't need to. It's obvious. I was going, how it can be obvious if you don't know them? Nothing's obvious until you know someone.
On Black History, I want to stay there for just a second, because part of the Black history, it's unfortunate, but most of it doesn't tell the full story. Like Harriet Tubman. What an amazing character. If you haven't seen the latest movie on her, she wasn't just an amazing, courageous person. She was prophetic. She saw things. She saw things, and she says, nope, can't go that way, because she saw a mental picture. Anyway, the abolitionists, that helped her in in those journeys. I mean, there was
well, that's
so
what we were
many
saying
of that.
earlier. We were talking about it's not just Black history. It's the history is the interaction of a people group in a particular circumstance. So they might have been addressing slavery, but that was mixed with a lot of different people who are
They're players.
who are pro it and against it. You know,
Yeah.
it was people.
I mean, go look
You
at
know?
the pictures of Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks. I mean, go look at everybody that's on the bus, that's in the march. I mean, it was the sea of humanity
Sure.
that was involved in those things. So, yeah, you know what? It's not that I'm a hater of Black history, because it does cause there to be a focus on, you know what, we've made some progress, but we need to keep going. But we'd make so much more progress if we were more. Let's pull everybody into this conversation. So,
Well, and the fact that they had to say, I mean, there was a time in our country where we had to have quote unquote Black things
Right.
because Jim Crow.
Ugh, yeah.
So we had to have that. So
Yeah.
I think what we fail to do as Americans is move beyond.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Yeah. Everything is not, you know, there's a season for things in life, you know,
Yeah.
and everything is not meant to be forever. You know,
right.
and it's hard for people sometimes to change.
That's right.
And so that's what we've had difficulty doing. And so I've stumbled upon this amazing factoid concerning kind of not Black History Month, but this one about to the transatlantic slave trade. And it was pretty amazing. I was shocked to find this out. And so maybe you viewers are, because I didn't know it. And I thought, I grew up in Prairie View. And so we knew a lot of just quote unquote Black history because we were taught it in homes and in the Boy Scouts. I remember we had, you know, we did stuff in the Boy Scouts. I said, so I grew up, I think, uncommon than most because I grew up with a lot of history of Blacks who did great things that, you know, when I was very young. But I didn't know this, that of the slaves from the African slave trade, so there were over 12 million. They said about 2 million were lost in the passage. All right. But 12 million of those 12 million, guess how many actually came to America? Of those 12 million, how many made it to America?
it's not as big as we think.
It's
because
not nearly as big. I was shocked.
They landed in the Caribbean,
Right,
and
right.
South America,
Right, right.
You know, farther.
The biggest, the preponderance of those slaves, 5 million, the most in one place, was Brazil. Was Brazil. America got 388,000. 388,000.
Wow.
That's it in America. So the rest, of course, were those who were born here and things like that. But 388,000 African slaves via the transatlantic slave trade.
I thought it was a
which
whole
is,
lot more than that.
I did too.
Yeah.
I would have thought for sure, but yeah. And I didn't realize that the others were people were so heavily invested in Europe and Brazil. You know, so that's pretty amazing. And I also found out that that slave trade didn't begin. I thought maybe it began like 1600, 1619, whatever. It was going on from 1500.
Wow.
Once they began seafaring vessels and began building ships, that was the same time, whatever. They said that's almost immediately when they began getting slaves from Africa. It's just that we didn't get any, you know, we didn't get any in North America until 1600s. But that's pretty amazing stuff. And that's the kind of stuff that we're talking about, that these are history factoids that just need to be known. I mean, you know, so that we can understand when we talk about slavery, what we're talking about. Because I think one of the things that when we talk about slavery in America, everybody thinks we're the only ones who did that. We're the only ones, and we think we're the only ones who did that. No, it's not true.
Alive to mankind
Has been
was
involved
involved in dominance and slavery to some extent.
Yeah.
Every culture. And
Yeah, the thing that's amazing is that most people don't, what people don't get out of that is that we were actually, and this is what made us so amazing, is that we were one of the first cultures, along with, because the British did away with slavery before we did, you know, but they started it before we did as well. Right. But we were one of the few who had a doctrine that was against slavery, you know, and that's what we, you know, even though we were doing it, our documents all speak against it. And that's why when we have whether it's the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the Federalist Papers, the Declaration of Independence, none of those things mention slavery. And they sound perfect. They sound great because they're talking about all men are created equal, this great stuff. And so, hey, well, that's good. We're going to take a break here. You got something to say? I heard you go. That means you were inhaling.
The only way that could happen is God was in the middle of writing those documents.
That's right. That's right. All right. So we're going to take a short break. We'll be right back here on Talk About Unity as we continue to talk about the issues that bring us unity.
That's it.
The Natural Nation Network is really about taking control of your health physically, spiritually, emotionally, even intellectually, because there's so much out there in misinformation. There's a lot of people now that are suffering from all sorts of diseases that they really wouldn't have to suffer for if they had better information. And that's what we're here to do. Provide information that can save lives.
The mind and the body are totally connected.
Health can be really serious, and sometimes we just have to lighten it up a little bit while we're still providing substantive information.
And my sort of mantra on the salsa dance floor is kind of similar. I tell somebody, if you make a mistake twice, it becomes a move.
Tune into Natural Nation every Tuesday at 11 a.m. When people stop talking to each other, society is on the edge. Let's bring them back. Edge Radio, because truth still matters.
Welcome back to Talk About Unity. Today we're talking about love, and we got a lot of love happening. I've experienced that love from a lot of people concerning my wife as she begins her chemotherapy treatment today, this afternoon. So I'll leave this place and I'll depart and take her there. And I tell you what, there's this thing about empathy. We use that word empathy a lot, and there are things I realize because I'm a Marine, and so you think all you got to do is apply more effort. When my wife was diagnosed with cancer, it was like there wasn't enough that I could do to empathize. I mean, I felt like I needed to be able to empathize more. And you realize there comes a point where you don't have enough. You don't have enough. That's when the love of people around you just comes in and rushing in. And it's just like, man, I think I'm a giant. I tell people, I keep saying, forget what Bill Gates or Jeff Bezos, I'm the richest man in the world. Because of the love. I mean, the people I meet, the people that I know, it's just so amazing. And so, forget what you hear about Jeff Bezos. I'm the richest man. Come see me if you need some of what I got. All right. Hey, so great. One other thing I want to do. Hey, we got these big ones. Make sure they can see your one. All right. You don't need to stand up. You're tall enough. I'm short. I got it. But look at these ones. This one is talking about we need to understand our unity. One. Everybody should walk around, and when somebody says something nasty to you, you should go, that's not one. That's not one. You're making us separate. That's hate. We need to be one. So that's why we got these big ones. It's like we were superheroes too. It's almost like Superman. We reveal our ones. We become superheroes because when we become that, then we can then exercise our superpower. And what's our superpower? I've been talking about it all day. It's love. That's our superpower. And so that's what we're talking about here on Talk About Unity. Exercise that superpower, and that's where we are. Okay.
You are one. I am one. And when one and one get together, it's a whole lot more than one. It looks like 11, but it's a whole lot more than that.
It's still one.
It's still one.
It's the math. One plus one is one.
I know. It's still one.
That's right.
It's a whole. It's synergy.
You can tell he's a preacher, right? He takes everything. He can preach that.
Synergy means 1 + 1 equals way more than 2.
Yeah,
Way
that's
more
good.
than 2.
You're right.
Yeah.
Yep, that's good. Very good.
Love greased the wheels on that too. So
We're gonna have a quote show one day. We just come in here and talk philosophy. Very good. That's good. That's good. And we could use that in America. I think we could use that.
should.
Some positive stuff, rather than CNN and Fox.
Oh,
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So let's go to our next topic today. All right, let's talk about. We're still kind of in the news. Let's talk about the COVID relief and COVID relief bill. First of all, what is happening with COVID? What do you think is going on with COVID? We got vaccines out. People are getting shots. Richard had COVID, so I just started hanging out with him, thinking I could get his antibodies from him.
I'm selling them on eBay.
He's selling his antibodies on eBay. If you want to get some, he's got antibodies.
Just bring me up. Yeah. No. So I got it. My daughter-in-law got it. Both my sons got it. My daughter, who has an immune disorder, she's had COVID twice.
Yeah. Are you serious?
I'm totally serious. And then, but Amy,
the queen of spring,
she has not got it. Yeah, COVID all around her.
All around her.
She hasn't had it. So, which is amazing. But there are people that are getting the vaccine, and there's people that are getting it and are getting kind of sick, and some people are getting real sick.
Right.
And there were some instances that said people died from it.
Right.
But I didn't really dig too deep on that, because did they already have an existing condition, and this just made it go over the edge?
Right.
Don't know. But there's a lot of apprehension towards it. But there's a lot of people in the medical community that I know that are high risk to exposure because they are in those wards, and they're doing great. So I don't know. We're going to get to herd immunity pretty quick once they figure out the distribution of it.
So herd immunity, what's that? It requires a whole lot of people to have the vaccine, or how do we get to herd immunity?
Well, it's when there's more people that are either recovered or inoculated and don't have it is so much greater than the people that do, or the virus that's in the community and adversely dies out because it doesn't have the opportunity to infect like it did before. So
yeah, okay, yeah, because I have. Well, I don't know that I've had it. I don't know. Maybe I did, and maybe I didn't know it or whatever. But but I think it feels like I'm immune. I don't know.
Hey, keep feeling that way.
I feel like
you probably won't get it.
Well, right? Yeah, I always had the Charleston healthcare plan. Anyway, I was doing the Charleston healthcare, and so I think that might have been working. I go to the gym, exercise, and do all those things,
right,
whatever.
Yeah, pray,
I wear my mask in public when I go to Walmart every day. I got my mask on, and so I do those things. But and I'm feeling that, like, well, if I got it, I would overcome it with my superpower, love. All right, my superpower. Boy, that's gonna be the theme of today's show. My superpower. Exercise your superpower. Okay, but one of the things that they introduced is COVID relief bill. Now, so I remember when this happened, they started talking about stimulus checks. My wife was like, "Hey, let the stimulus checks come out." I was like, "Stop! Somebody's got to pay for that. We don't pay for that. Somebody's got to pay for that. Stop asking for stimulus checks." But now they're at this COVID relief bill, and they're battling back and forth because Biden and the Democrats want to, give this almost $2 trillion deal, and the Republicans are saying we need to spend about $800 billion. So that's a huge big difference. A big difference. And they're just talking about, the Republicans are saying it needs to be more targeted. We're just giving away money to a lot of people who probably don't need it. So we need to make sure we're giving it to the people who need it. So listen to these two polar visions of what kind of money we should be giving. There's a proposal right now by the Democrats in their bill that would give $3,000 child tax credit, and that $3,000 for each child that you have between up to age 17.
That's an auto ticket for some people.
But listen, $3,000 per child, and they want to do it per month for a year.
We're broke.
We're already broke. Now. So I'm thinking about. I got a niece who's got 3 kids, and she works right now doing healthcare, and so she's maintaining. That would take her to making $9,000 an extra a month. $9,000 a month for a year.
Man.
I mean, really, what are we doing here? I mean, and I think it sounds great. I mean, definitely sounds great for them. They're like, man, they just won the lottery. They won the lottery. They're making more money than they might ever make in their lives for that year. But America is a place where we really should be teaching the principles of work, the work ethic, and
fiscal
getting by. I think about my parents and their parents and the way that they worked and the ethic they grew up with. That's what we should be speaking to. We should be speaking to bringing out the best in our American citizens and not just making them happy. You know, sure, we'd all be happy if you gave us more money, government. Sure. But really, what are you doing for us? Man, there was this great quote, and I'm gonna misquote it, but Denzel Washington, I posted it yesterday on my Facebook page. And he said, so I'm gonna misquote it, so it's not gonna sound as dynamic, but I can get the gist of what he was saying. But he was saying that ease is a bigger detriment to progress than hardship. Mm-hmm. Ease is a bigger detriment to progress than hardship. Yeah. And so I understand America. Yeah, we went through some bad times. 2020, sure. COVID, and all this stuff was bad. But Americans, what we are people who can overcome. I mean, and that's what we do. And I hate to say to pull up ourselves by our bootstraps, but it's just the strength that we have together as people. We come together, we can make it happen. And so I understand there could be a role that the government plays, and there could be some financial things that they need to do. But let's not forsake what we represent as Americans. That is where we can fend for ourselves. Government, sometimes you need to get out of the way and let us become the grown-ups that we are, and let us make it happen in our homes for our families. Just don't be an impediment to that. You know, but don't give us a free ride. I mean, nobody's looking for a free ride. We're just saying, let us do what we can do.
And we're not saying, I don't think you're saying this, I'm definitely not saying this, is that we're not saying we don't care about those that are in situations that need financial help.
Right. No, they can get some help.
We want to help people during the season. Mm-hmm. But we're forgetting, and if we look at the contrast between states that are fiscally conservative and more just mindful and responsible with budgets and money and business creation. Leave out the name Republican or Democrat, but just look at communities that are doing that, and then other communities are like it's the government is going to fix everything. Yeah. If we can just go to the principle of the unseen hand of capitalism,
right,
and just let people go figure out how to run their business, as long as it's not just a huge detriment. You know, the restaurants or construction. Here's the one we're dealing with right now is education. Mm-hmm. So the school districts, as they listen, you're not going to get this huge infusion of cash all the time. Teachers, listen, okay, you don't want to teach, you feel scared. Okay, well, you're going to go on unemployment until you're ready to come back, instead of your much more larger teacher salary. And then you're going to see, it's bad. But you know what? I am willing to take that risk. Here's what's really at stake in the education are the children, the suicide rate and the addictions and all these other things that are happening with these kids not being in school is a big deal. And the parents have to stay home and watch the kids.
And you know what? Because
it's a big spiral.
So, but I noticed that, especially around here where we live, everybody's back in school. I mean, I think in California they're not in school.
Chicago is going through it
I know Chicago, because the teachers union is keeping the teachers out.
Real bad.
So those are things that need to be observed. But I think at the end of the day, like you're saying though, our ancestors, we're talking my parents and their parents, they saw hardship. Yeah. They saw hardship and they were able to overcome. I want the challenge to be just as tough as my father and my grandfather and my grandma. Give me that challenge, because I think we're up to it. And I think anything less is to say, I can't do it, and so I need the government to take care of me. We don't need government as mom and dad in our homes. So, but here's the other point on that, was that the other, so you got those extremes. So they're saying $3,000 per child tax credit for annually for 1 year. And then on the other end, you had, and that was where Mitt Romney came in, because he said, well, let's try something more modest. Let's go $350 per child, and he was talking about a one-time payment, And so, that's maybe that's not enough, or whatever. So, but they need to come together. Here we go back to our beginning of the show. They need to come together and see if they can work out a solution. Or American citizens, we fire them all. That's what we do. All right, we fire them all. They got to solve some problems. We got to get them to solve problems. They don't need to solve Democratic problems or Republican problems. They need to solve America's problems, and that's what we got to come together.
I'm gonna throw the commercial out one more time. So listen, the House, the Senate is 50-50. They're completely tied.
Right, 50-50.
The House is only separated by six votes.
6 votes.
The conservative-leaning Supreme Court Joe Biden's over here.
But they're not political, so the court, shouldn't be thrown in there
but
because they're
I'm
supposed to
saying
just be
leaning.
objective.
I'm saying the conservative votes
Chief
that
Justice
have
Roberts is
happened.
not always leaning. He was appointed, and they thought he was.
So we'll leave the president and Supreme Court out of the mix.
Right.
Except Kamala's a tiebreaker. She's
in the Senate.
Democrat in the
Right.
So that makes it 51. Here's what I wanted to say to you guys. If there's ever been a time where we needed to recognize the government is of the people, by the people, and for the people, and Washington works for us, we don't work for them, we need to start calling them and tell them to act like adults. And listen, this nonsense of somebody getting $10,000 every month during this COVID season. It's like, come on, let's knock that off. Oh, do we need to take care of our citizens?
Yes.
Absolutely. Stop playing this hypocritical double standard. I can have my friend's restaurant that I'm a part ownership in, and I'm the governor. Oh, but the person right across the street can't. No, this hypocrisy and this political underhanded cheating. Listen, we need to start blowing some people up. Get our politicians on.
He doesn't mean literally, okay, everybody, right? We got this thing going on now where every time you say something, be careful the way you speak these days. You got to be careful. He's not talking literally, all right? He means call them on the phone. That's slang. Let me interpret. That's slang for call them on the phone.
All the time.
All right, so I got to
know them by name.
Yeah. They'll be calling.
You got me out of jail,
Oscar. They'll be calling Oscar, saying, "Oscar, hey, Edge Radio, we're suing Edge Radio. They're gonna go for the deep pockets. They know you and I got no money. They're gonna call for the deep pockets. So we're gonna put Oscar in trouble. But that's good point. Very good point.
Make
Go
those
ahead.
calls.
Right, make those calls. Okay. All right. So, hey, we're gonna come back. We got one more break, and we're gonna come back, and we're gonna end the show because remember at the beginning of the show we talked about they wanted to institute a reality czar, of course, and I pushed back was they need a unity czar. So they need to have Richard and we need to go to Washington, D.C., sit down with President Biden and Vice President Harris, and let's talk to them. But after we come back, we're going to talk about what they're doing with the reality czar that they want to appoint. So we'll be right back after this break. We're back at Talk About Unity, and we're going to do more talking about unity than we're talking about blowing people up. As Richard, my co-host, is talking about. So we had to kind of change the show, and so we got to make sure. Next thing you know, want the FBI come and check in on my buddy there, Richard, talking about he's an insurrectionist. So we can't have that.
I'm a love guy.
So we started out the show talking about this the czar. There's someone suggested, I think it was someone, the New York Times reported it.
What kind of czar?
This is they wanted a reality czar, and they said that there needs to be someone in Washington who speaks directly to the president, so he can say, hey, the reality czar is advising this or recommending this, so that we can make sure that we've got truth dispensed into the American atmosphere rather than the stuff that's out there. And so that's kind of questionable. I mean, a reality czar. Do we really need a reality czar to combat disinformation? Do we really need that? Or do we just need to be girded about with truth? And we, and hey, by the way, over history, remember Bigfoot?
Yeah.
Remember Bigfoot, Sasquatch, and all the, there's always been all these crazy ideas, Martians and all these things. There have always been those. What did we rely upon for truth there? What did we rely upon? Mom and dad, people, people had to deal with that. And so I don't know why we're getting so caught up on this. There's truth and there's error, and we need to be open to truth. We need to seek truth in our lives, and we need to pursue that. And I don't think you can spend all your time focusing on, we got to make sure that that's not error. The only way you fight that is with truth. So if you got truth, then the error will diminish in its size. So what do you think? Reality czar.
We're headed down a slippery slope. Listen, who has reality czars is North Korea and China. And old Russia, probably even still some of current Russia. We have all this social media. And now I got an issue with that, because during this last election cycle, Twitter and Facebook, what were they doing? They were
controlling the information.
Oh no, that's false information. We're going to.
But so maybe they were the reality czars. Huh?
Yeah,
they determined what was reality.
Half the population was saying, no, that's not fake news. This is because I actually have video of all these things that really contradict you saying it's not true. So I think a lot of it is we need to lay it out there as clearly as possible and let people decide for themselves. Does that ring true in their hearts? Or do they have other information that contradicts that, and really come to terms with that? But to have somebody who's censoring, no, that doesn't line up with my truth, so let me zap it. No, that whole my truth thing is a slippery slope also.
Yeah, so you got me thinking about that when you said North Korea and China and those type of regimes. And so that reality czar that we're talking about is really more a propaganda czar.
That's exactly
because they're actually the arbiters of what is truth and the message that we want to put out. Yeah, I don't think we really want that in America. I mean, really, I do think, that First Amendment that we talk about a lot is kind of inherent in the fact that we want to be able to kind of say the things that we want to say, regardless of how crazy they may be. I mean, I say some crazy stuff sometimes, and my wife says I say crazy things, And so I don't think you want to bridle that. I mean, I don't think, you definitely don't want the government bridling that. So, I mean, I think it's the truth that we seek. However we access our truth. I mean, I like going to Richard's church, and that's the kind of truth I'm like to access, and that is the truth that ferrets out all of the error.
You like going to a church? I mean, I just talked about blowing people up.
Yeah, that's right. I don't know how you can get people in this church.
Last break. Okay, let me just say, I said, listen, we need to let our politicians know when we're not happy with what they do, and I said, you need to get on the phone and blow them up. Blow them up does not talk about any kind of incendiary device. It means get on the phone and push.
You see how guilty he feels that we're talking about this again on the show.
Call them as many times as you possibly can. That's what I mean. Okay, so but what we need to understand is, talking about in my church, this is a culture that I really push. I'm very intentional about it. There's a lot of people that talked about truth. Caesar said it. Herod said it. Many not theologians but philosophers throughout time asked the question: What is truth? What is truth? Jesus said, if you continue in my word. Then you are my disciples.
Then you are my disciples.
And you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. So what is your wellspring? What is your source of truth? You really need to pay attention to that, because there's some things that look shiny and bright and cute and convenient and appealing to your flesh. There's a lot of things that look true, but they will mess you up. And you got to go back to the standards of what is truth.
Yeah, that's very good. Really good. I'm going to close out as we get ready to close out our show. Someone said one time, they said, everything that is true is not the truth. Everything that is true, everything that is true is not the truth. When people talk about, I can't, I'm incapable. Well, you might be speaking a truism, but that's not the truth. If you knew the truth, you would feel empowered, and you would know that you can. Yes. So, all right. So, hey, we thank you for the dialogue today. Very good show. Time flies, but hey, We spent enough time talking about blowing people up, and we're not
No,
doing any of
we're
that.
not doing that
But at the
anymore.
beginning of the show, we started out, we went from polar to polar. We went from one end to the other end of the spectrum because we talked about our superpowers that we all have, and that's what we want to manifest here on Talk About Unity, the fact that you can love,
Yes.
and love overcomes everything. Love is it. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love is amazing. You can experience that when you exercise that. So do that today, and we thank you for tuning in today on Talk About Unity with my co-host, Richard Jennings. We thank you.